Hey there! I know, I haven't done a new video on this channel for quite some time now, but I've been busy with other things. Well, here I am. And today I'm going to show you something rare and unique one of my furry friends sent me as an early Christmas gift. Look at this. The Art of Animation from the Walt Disney Educational Media Company. You may remember a few years back I showed you how Disney had read-along kits designed for school listening centers. Remember those? Taking one of the existing read-along titles from the Disneyland Records catalog and making a special educational purpose version that would also work in some curriculum for the kids. Yep, naturally, this was the Free Little Pigs one I looked at. Well, the Walt Disney Educational Media Company also produced book and audio read-alongs of non-fiction material for kids to learn. I know they did one about magic and superstition, and they did one about wildlife, and they did one about old trains. Yeah, they all link to Disney in a way, and even feature some Disney characters, and this one is no exception. Yeah, they're released in the Walt Disney Reading Adventure Library. Anyways, we all know animation is what got the Walt Disney Company started in the first place. This title was made in 1974, so some of it's a little dated now, but it's a fun look back. The audio cassette here is very simple, even more simple than the early regular read-alongs from Disney. But for this purpose, it's adequate. Let's have a listen. Bah. There. Mm-hmm.
What is an animated motion picture? That is a fascinating question, because getting the answer leads right into the world of artists, cameramen, directors, actors, writers.
Oh, some art from the Robin Hood read-along. The Sheriff of Nottingham, the Trigger.
Drawings that seem to move and tell a story. Attempts to make still pictures seem to move began many years ago.
That's the page-turning signal.
We know about
well, the sound of a page turning.
Done on a cave wall in Spain 30,000 years ago. Using his imagination in an unusual way, the artist tried to show that the pig was running by drawing it with 8 legs. Many years later, the Greeks showed the stages of action of foot races on their vases. And the Japanese of long ago painted pictures on scrolls, which told a story when the scroll was unrolled. But the typical cartoon film, which most of us see either on television or at the movies, came into being when the motion picture projector was invented. It was not long until artists realized that they could create the effect of movement by making a set of drawings which changed only slightly from one to the other. When photographed and run on the projector, these drawings seemed to come alive. After several experiments, the animated film was born. The first animated films began around the 1900s. In 1906, J. Stuart Blackton made a short film entitled Humorous Phases of Funny Faces.
It's rare for Disney to acknowledge animated stuff that was made before them.
Years later, a Frenchman named Émile Cole made a 2-minute film using 2,000 drawings. It was called Phantasmagoria. The public went wild about these animated films. In 1923, another pioneer in the art of animated films, Walt Disney, opened opened a cartoon studio in Hollywood. His achievements over the years were many and great. He was the first to add voices, sound effects, and music to cartoon films.
In an elaborate manner, that is, with Steamboat Willie.
He showed that cartoons didn't have to stay simple.
Right.
By 1937, he was creating beautiful, full-length animated motion pictures.
Yeah.
How is an animated film made? There are many complicated steps.
Oh, yeah.
They involve artists and technicians with different talents and skills. Working together, they may spend months or even years to make a 90-minute film.
That's for sure. But newer technologies have helped speed things up. And more often than not, they would work on more than one animated feature at the same time. And those shorts they do as well.
Painted and photographed. It isn't surprising that a few animated films have taken between 4 and 5 years to complete. And have cost millions of dollars.
Especially the real big ones like Sleeping Beauty.
The first step in making an animated film is to create the story and decide on characters. The important parts of the story are then drawn on a small
that's like a little flipbook type of thing. Animation and chip.
Called a storyboard. Its purpose is to show the whole story, the characters, and the action before any complete drawings are made. When this is done, some artists start designing the characters' clothes. Other artists design the backgrounds that will be used in each scene. For example, the houses, outside and inside.
It's like a house of Lady and a Tramp there.
Places like parks, cities, and forests. The person who supervises this activity is called a layout man, because he must decide what to lay out in front of the camera for each scene.
Yep.
At the same time, a technician called a special effects man works on such problems as creating rainstorms, or earthquakes, or forest fires.
Ah, yes.
These are quite impressive.
I remember for a long time Disney would offer these live-action rain and snow in their animated features. Last time they did that was in the Little Mermaid. The last one they did use hand-painted cells.
Great skill and imagination to accomplish. When it seems that all the planning is finished, live actors are brought in to record the voices of the characters.
And that can be
At
fun.
this point, the talking part of the film is done. Now the work of the animator begins.
Yep, there's me.
It's a very difficult task. Because
Look at that nice model sheet. I think it's a somewhat newer one, though, but it's still great they included me in the book.
Giraffes do not move or react like mice, for example. So he must be able to draw a
Another shot from the Robin Hood read-along.
The desired effect. It is obvious that besides being a good artist, he must have a thorough understanding of the characters themselves.
Yes.
The animator draws only the basic positions in the action. His helpers, called in-betweeners, make the in-between drawings needed to complete the action.
Yeah.
How do they know how many to draw?
Look at that, with
They do it by
Lucifer.
matching pictures to the soundtrack. At first, the drawings are done in pencil. This lets the animator check to see if the action works as it should. The director of the film also checks the scene. Between them, they decide on changes, and the animator makes the needed corrections.
Oh look, it's the wolf from Peter and the Wolf.
The animation artists have their assistants
From Make
the
My
final
Music.
drawings.
Too bad he's
Each
way more
drawing is
obscure
made on
than
a
me.
transparent sheet of material called a cell.
Yep,
Using
animation
either
cells.
ink or a Xerox process and paints. The completed cells, with the backgrounds, are then sent to the camera department to be photographed.
I remember the cells had a, when they used the
The way
Xerox
in which
process,
animated films are photographed
everything
is
looked a
very
little more
unusual.
sketchy.
First, the background art is placed on a long, flat table and secured
Ah,
in place.
yes, the old multi-pane
The
camera.
cell is placed on top in its proper position.
They were gonna use it on the Little Mermaid, but it wasn't working that properly anymore, so they had to outsource the multi-pane
This
stuff.
process is repeated for each drawing. Later, when these separate pictures are projected on the screen, it will seem that the characters really move. After the photography has been completed and the pictures have been matched with the voice track, the composer and the sound effects men start their work.
Yep, post-production
The composer
audio.
studies the picture and decides what kind of music should be used in the film. After he has composed all the music, he conducts the orchestra in a recording studio, while the picture is shown on a screen. This way, he can make sure that the music fits the picture exactly. Now it is the turn of the sound effects man.
Hey, look at this!
Bang, plunk, and whistle in the
It's
picture.
Jimmy McDonald, Disney's greatest sound effects designer of all time. A shame Disney's not using her old sound effects very much anymore.
They use all kinds of odd pieces of equipment to make the sounds needed in the film.
Yeah, they showed that type of stuff.
What sound would you use for a spider web sparkling in the sun?
Yeah, they showed that stuff in the Reluctant Dragon, the sound effects for our Casey Jr. sequence.
As it's projected, and create an effect at the proper point, recording everything they do. Then, they listen to the recording they have made to make sure the effects work.
Yeah, Disney had such a great sound effects library back then.
All that is left to do is add the sounds to the picture. This is done in the film laboratory. At last, the animated film is finished and ready to show. What about cartoons in the future? That can only be guessed. Today, computers do much animation work.
Yeah, although Disney didn't start using computer technology for their animated features until the 80s. And look at them now.
Write good stories, create special characters, compose the right music for a dancing duck, or create the sound of an elephant with the hiccups. Only artists can do that. And only artists ever will.
Oh yes, that is so true. Disney still has some great artists on staff. Especially since, like I said, starting 9 years ago, Disney has really been coming back. Even if they're just doing CGI, many of their features still have that classic Disney feel to them. Especially Frozen. That's probably why it was Disney's biggest hit since The Lion King. Since it was a traditional classic-style Disney princess fairy tale musical. The one everyone expects from the Walt Disney Company. Yeah. It's amazing. Here we go. Yeah, my fingers have a little trouble with some of these, like, in a way, they're like hardcover, but they're also like paperback, because they use stapling. I call it cardboard back. Yeah. And Zootopia was also a lot smarter and more well done than other attempts at talking animal movies from around that time. In a manner very reminiscent of Robin Hood. But in the 21st century, Disney's initial all-CGI movie, Chicken Little, was a big mistake, as it was just Disney trying to be like DreamWorks or those other talking animal movies from that era. You often incorporate celebrity voices and pop culture references and junk like that. But of course, Disney using celebrity voices actually goes way back. Even in stuff like Alice in Wonderland that featured Jerry Colonna and Ed Wood doing voices. And yes, I remember how The Little Mermaid was the final Disney animated feature to actually use hand-painted cells, as this book mentions. By the time the 80s became the 90s, Disney started using digital coloring and compositing, and it also made it easier to integrate CGI with the hand-drawn animation, like the ballroom in Beauty and the Beast. And with the CGI, Disney began experimenting a bit in The Black Cauldron, and then The Great Mouse Detective. Yeah, Disney's always been finding ways to be innovative with animation, and how to streamline the production process and stuff to make it still look very good. Not like when they were using some of Hanna-Barbera's cost-cutting techniques in The Jungle Book and Robin Hood. And as I mentioned about the sound effects, Disney began to phase them out by the mid-80s. Only a few were heard in The Black Cauldron, and the Auburn Company had none of them at all. Yet for some odd reason, The Great Mouse Detective used a lot of them. Maybe due to the lower budget. At least I have copies of many of those old sound effects myself. Mainly through albums like these. And that cartoon track sound effects library from the now defunct Hollywood Edge. It was only released on CD, But I have it as digital only, as Sound Ideas now distributes it that way. And speaking of Sound Ideas, I also enjoy working with the Warner Brothers library here. And the Hanna-Barbera sound effects library. A few of Disney's old effects even show up on these sets. Of course, you may remember my extensive use of the Hanna-Barbera sound effects libraries on my Robin Hood YouTube poop. Disney buys out Hanna-Barbera. And then here in the back cover of the book, look how on the front it tells you not to look at the back cover until you've read the whole story. And for good reason. The back cover here, there's a list of vocabulary words, asking the reading kids if they know what they mean. Of course, I know what they mean easily. Any animation buff would know them too. Take a look. Read them all? Good. And more model sheets of Prince John and Sir Hiss. Of course, since this book was written and published in 1974, Robin Hood was still a hot property back then, and fairly new. And The Rescuers was also going through production. And that year they also released Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and Sue. Anyways, hope you all like this. I'm currently planning 2 YouTube poops right now. One of them Christmas related. And I have another read-along review planned next week, so stay tuned.